Well, I don't know if it's the fight of the decade, or the fight of the generation, or the fight of the century, but it's certainly something to behold. Welcome, everyone. My name is Luke Thomas. This is the Mayweather versus Pacquiao SB Nation preview show. A lot to get to, a lot to talk about, and to help me do that is the gentleman to my left. He is the senior writer for Sports Illustrated. By the way, check out Sports Illustrated's new covers with Mayweather on the front, Pacquiao on the back, the one and only Chris Mannix. Chris, thank you for joining me very much.
Happy to be here.
Chris, look around us. We've been here all week. I've seen you all week. Now that it's here, not the fight so much, but just the buzz, is it everything you thought it would be?
You know, to me, the best atmosphere remains Mayweather versus Ricky Hatton because all the Brits came over like on Tuesday, and the great story from that week was that they literally drank the MGM Grand out of beer. Haven't seen that quite yet. We're into Friday, starting to see more people around. It's tough to navigate the hallways, but it has not yet graduated to that atmosphere. And I can understand it because one of the fears coming into this fight in terms of atmosphere was that it would be a Super Bowl-ish kind of thing. You'd have a lot of corporate people here that can afford these tickets and not the salt of the earth people that support these guys on a regular basis. So television-wise, it's going to be phenomenal. Atmosphere-wise, I have not felt giddy about what I've seen so far.
I want to talk about that in just a second. People have asked me, is this as big as a Super Bowl? I never covered a Super Bowl, but I'm wondering, my thought is that it's probably not as big, but it's definitely the most global sporting event I've ever been a part of. There are people here from all corners and reaches of the earth.
Yeah.
How would you assess what this is relative to maybe a bigger U.S. sporting event?
I don't think there's anything even in comparison, just because the number of people from all walks of life that are trying to get not just tickets, but closed circuit tickets in the arena, just getting into Las Vegas to be a part of this event. I mean, we did a story on SI.com recently about the people trying to acquire tickets, like sultans overseas trying to buy tickets. Guys were offering up their life savings to try to buy tickets. You see people interested in the Super Bowl, and that's obviously the closest comparison. You don't see people, willing to cut their arm off, basically, to get a ticket into this fight. So in that sense, it's unique.
Let's talk about how we got here. We know that there
How much time do you have?
Well, let's do the Cliff Notes version.
Right.
2009, let's sort of move back there. We've got Mayweather out of retirement. He's beaten Juan Manuel Marquez. Now we have Manny Pacquiao, two-handed fighter. He just beat Miguel Cotto. Why did negotiations early on fail?
Well, drug testing is what it boils down to. Pacquiao would not agree to full random blood and urine testing. And look, he admitted later that he was at fault. In stories we've written, he, Freddie Roach, Bob Arum said we should have just admitted or said we'll do everything, whatever you want, Floyd, let's get the deal done, because every other deal point was agreed to. It was 50-50. It was Mayweather, Pacquiao stateside, Pacquiao, Mayweather overseas. This guy gets that locker room. This guy walks first. All these ego issues they've been fighting over like cats and dogs for the last couple of weeks were all agreed to. Even the split, 50-50, right down the middle. Big issue there now. The issue of drug testing, whenever it came up, it became something that Pacquiao was not willing to deal with. That's what scuttled that first fight.
And Freddie Roach saying yesterday, I don't know if this number is accurate, but he was saying that during this camp, Manny Pacquiao's been tested a dozen times.
One thing about Freddie Roach, timelines are never right, facts are always right. His facts are always right, his timelines are always way off.
Certainly the point being that Manny Pacquiao's been tested a number of times. Okay, but here's the interesting part about this. In 2014, in December, I recall, Mayweather was essentially the one who called him out. Now, some people have speculated it was because, look, a fight against Amir Khan just wouldn't make the same kind of money that this would. Or Freddie Roach's theory that Showtime was losing money on the deal and they were just basically strong-arming Mayweather to make this fight. Why did Mayweather call out Pacquiao on that Showtime broadcast?
Look, I do think that the constant attention paid to this fight is worn on Floyd Mayweather. Everywhere he goes, they're saying it. He goes to a Clipper game, they're chanting, "Fight Pacquiao." He goes on the street, wherever he is, they're chanting for him to fight Pacquiao. He looked across the landscape. He's made some pretty good money, obviously. He could have fought anybody and still gotten some real guaranteed money from Showtime, but there was not someone I think that he could have gotten up for in the way Pacquiao was willing to do it. But more importantly, this time around, I think he knew, based on Pacquiao's public comments, that Pacquiao was willing to come off the 50-50 split. He already said publicly, I'll take 45. Ultimately, wound up being 40. That's all the other issues aside, that's the biggest issue when it comes to this fight. He knew Pacquiao was willing to give him the lion's share, and that mattered to Mayweather.
It's interesting to me also that it feels like all roads lead to Mayweather for this fight. So you mentioned before he has the 60-40 split. Golden Boy was forced out. Mayweather Promotions was a part of this. And more than that, when you ask people what is this fight about, you hear a lot of, well, if Mayweather wins this, he's unequivocally the best fighter of this generation. Is this really just the Mayweather show? How does Pacquiao really fit into this narrative?
Well, I think Pacquiao, if he wins this fight, he will establish himself as the best fighter of this generation. I don't think that
even with the 5 losses?
Even with the 5 losses are irrelevant. There's a split camp on what losses mean. I don't I don't give a damn. You know, Sugar Ray Robinson had 19 losses. Muhammad Ali had 5 losses. Who cares? How many losses did Oscar De La Hoya have? It doesn't matter how many losses you have. It matters who you fight consistently. I don't think anyone would argue that Manny Pacquiao's resume is better than Floyd Mayweather's overall. If he wins this fight, it still won't tell you who the best guy was in his prime. Only if we can go back in time or load up a video game or whatever can tell us that. But as far as the best fight of this generation, the winner of this, I think, will be able to stake that claim.
One fact that people keep bringing up to me is they say, well, this fight should have happened in 2009, 2010. And I don't think that they're wrong, but if you look at the rankings today, Mayweather still sits atop number 1, and Pacquiao could be 2 or 3, depending where you put Klitschko. So would you say that, yes, this fight should have happened back then, but these two guys, for now anyway, are still at the top of the sport?
Yeah, it's a good way to put it. 2010, they were by far and away 1-2 in the overall rankings. Now, you kind of sandwich Andre Ward maybe between them. Mayweather 1, Ward 2, Pacquiao 3, but they're still 2 of the top 3 best fighters in boxing, and they're still by far and away the top 2 welterweights in the world. So this isn't a matchup you're just making to cash in. This will be a relevant matchup in the 147-pound division. That's why it's an important fight.
Quick note about the trainers. It's very interesting to watch in boxing where you have not just the fighters having such a public profile, but the trainers as well. Freddie Roach and Floyd Sr. had their own press conference yesterday, and it was well attended. What do you make of them? Is it good that it relieves the pressure on the fighters to do media? These guys, I mean, Floyd used to be good at doing good media, now he just sort of says buzz phrases. But more than just being out in the public eye, is this a referendum on Senior's career as a trainer? Is this a referendum on Roach's career as a trainer?
You know, if Freddie loses this fight, it'll diminish him a little bit, but what he's accomplished over the course of his career, 7-time trainer of the year, Hall of Fame guys on his resume, even now, training Miguel Cotto, training Ruslan Provodnikov, his stable continues to grow with elite fighters. Everyone out there knows if you want to become a better offensive-oriented fighter, you go visit Freddie Roach, a status that he's totally taken over now that Emmanuel Stewart has passed away. Floyd Mayweather Sr., I don't know what to make of him, really, because I still believe that Mayweather is basically self-trained. I mean, Floyd Sr., when he was younger, did a great job of building him up, teaching him that shoulder roll, hammering it in him, don't get hit, don't get hit, don't get hit. But at this point, it just feels like Mayweather has been around way too long. He just needs Floyd Sr. to sort of smooth out the rough edges, maybe tell him something he's not seeing and be a second sounding board. Whereas for Freddie Roach, he legitimately is a strategist when it comes to Pacquiao. He spends an entire camp drilling home strategy in Manny's head. That's something I think is different than what Floyd Sr. does.
Let's talk about their weapons. Back in the day, in 2009, you could have said that Pacquiao was a two-handed fighter, obviously favoring the left. What does Pacquiao have now that maybe Mayweather's never seen?
Angles. I think that's the biggest thing. And Marcos Maidana had some angles, but his punches were so slow that you could see them coming from a mile away. Pacquiao isn't as fast as he once was, but he's still fast enough to throw those punches, those slicing, knifing punches that come from all different directions. You've seen him knock so many guys out. This isn't George Foreman in Pacquiao. He wasn't winning by knockout with one thundering punch. He was winning by hitting you from a shot that looked like E. Honda in Street Fighter. I mean, that's kind of that's really kind of what he looked like in doing that. Now, he's not quite that guy anymore, but he still throws punches from different angles. Mayweather's gonna have to be very defensive. And look, he can do that. But my question is he gonna be able to be defensive and still score enough points to impress the judges? That's why it's gonna be Mayweather's most difficult fight.
And Mayweather's the king of adjustments, right? If you can't get him early, by the second half of the later rounds, you're finished, right?
Every fighter you've ever talked to has said Mayweather makes the best adjustments of anybody I've ever seen. He feels you up for the first 3 rounds. He takes away your best weapon. He frustrates you. He wears you down. He's the Iceman of boxing. That is his MO.
There's some concern about Kenny Bayless being the referee, that he's essentially too proactive in how he wants to be involved in the fight and how he splits them up or doesn't. Do you like Kenny Bayless as the referee here?
I like him. He's a very good referee. Every referee you point to is going to have some kind of flaws.
Would he be your first choice if you were picking?
If I could pick any referee in the world, I'd take Steve Smoger, because Steve would make you fight the whole time. But I don't think a referee is going to be all that relevant. In every other sport, you hear about this. Covering basketball, NBA Finals come around. Joey Crawford's the referee. Do we really want Joey being the guy? Calls too many fouls on Tim Duncan. It's all gamesmanship. I think Pacquiao's side, and to an extent Oscar De La Hoya, I think is on Pacquiao's side to this point, is wants to put it in his head that Mayweather's going to try to clinch, he's going to try to do these illegal things, so at some point during the fight, Kenny Bayless says to himself, well, I got to be on the lookout for something Mayweather's doing because people think I'm in his pocket.
Quickly about the Pacquiao KO against Marquez. It's interesting across combat sports, they treat KOs like that very differently. In boxing, it has a certain gravity to it, very serious. Do you believe that sort of thing, not that it won't have a physiological effect, because I think that's incontestable, but mentally, do you think, not that Mayweather's the biggest knockout threat, but that he's kind of gun shy a little bit?
That's a great question, because one of the strategies Freddie Roach outlined for me was that he needs Pacquiao to stay in the pocket and take one of Mayweather's best punches to give back 2 or 3 more, which is easier said than done. You can say, look, he's wide open when Mayweather throws the jab, he's wide open. You just got to take it and give it back. Well, you or me are not standing in the ring taking that punch to the stomach. I know I wouldn't want to do that on a regular basis. Pacquiao's ability to do that, I think, is going to be a real storyline of this fight. I don't know if he's fully recovered from that knockout. He hasn't fought anybody with any real power up to this point. Brandon Rios was like a totem pole turning around. Timothy Bradley doesn't have great power. Chris Algieri was never really in the fight. We just haven't seen Pacquiao in another knockdown, drag-out war against an elite fighter. So that's a great question, and one I don't think we can answer until Saturday night.
Before we get your prediction, is this the fight of the century? I have a hard time believing that it is, but maybe it is the fight of the generation. Short century, right, yeah. But I guess generally speaking, where would you rank this all time in terms of the fights? People have different views about where this one belongs. What is yours?
Best fight of the 21st century. Where does it rank up against some of the great fights of the 80s? I don't really know. I mean, those guys fought each other consistently. Leonard fought Duran, Leonard Hagler, Hagler Hearns. I mean, it was like every other month we were seeing a great fight in boxing. You go back even further, Rocky Marciano and Jake LaMotta and Sugar Ray Robinson were fighting each other like every month, it seemed like. That was a different generation, different time. Because we don't see many great fights anymore, because it seems like we have to wait 8 years for every big super fight, this ranks right up with the best fight of the 21st century. It's on a list of 10 to 15, in my opinion, in the overall span of boxing.
All right, prediction time. Mayweather, Pacquiao, the odds favor Mayweather slightly, but that's the gambling odds, don't really tell the full story. What is the full story according to Chris Mannix?
You know, I cover the NBA too, and I've learned never bet against the San Antonio Spurs until they lose. I'm never betting against Floyd Mayweather until he loses. He just continues to defy the odds. We sit here and say, well, Pacquiao can rough him up. Jose Luis Castillo roughed him up. That was the way to do it. Well, he beat Jose Luis Castillo, then he whitewashed him in the rematch. Well, Southpaw's given problems. Zab Judah gave him some problems early on. Well, he wound up whooping Zab Judah. He's 8-0 against Southpaws. All these guys that give Mayweather problems ultimately lined up losing to Mayweather. That's why I'm taking Mayweather by decision.
For Pacquiao supporters, what could they hang on here? What should they look for? What will be the telltale signs is winning? Obviously, if he's landing punches, but I mean more than that. What can they look to?
I think building an early lead, at least in his mind, is going to be critical. Really, in Mayweather's mind is most critical because if you let Mayweather settle into a rhythm, dictate the pace, you're done. We'll know by the 3rd or 4th round if Pacquiao's in this. I don't think either one of these guys has the requisite power to knock the other guy out, but if he can take Mayweather out of his comfort zone, if he can make him think I have to go for something more, take bigger risks, maybe go for a knockout, that could change the whole dynamic of the fight.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Mayweather versus Pacquiao. It'll be on Saturday, $100 pay-per-view price.
Hey,
they're gouging us.
Find a friend.
Find many friends. Whatever you do, watch it. Mayweather versus Pacquiao. Stay tuned to SB Nation for more coverage. Chris, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Guys, enjoy the fights.